Okay, let's start now. I'm going to talk to you guys about some different things at the beginning of class. A little bit about, actually, not about writing, but about English teaching, and also about the difference between teachers in the United States and teachers in Taiwan. Okay, so a little bit different today, okay? First of all, I want to talk about English teaching, motivation for your students. You know, when a student is learning a second language, in the very beginning, there are a lot of different intervening variables, what we call things that could interfere with their language learning, such as motivation or let's say anxiety. You guys understand? Anxiety, nervousness, pressure from peers to either excel or not excel in the language, academic factors, past learning experiences in the second language, but many different things could affect individual students. So every student's got to, they carry different things with them when they come into your classroom. And so one of the best ways, that can really help students in the very beginning is through, trying to get them motivated, or actually just trying to get them to feel very good about their second language level. For me, I do that by, I think, lowering my standards and, not being so demanding of the students, right? Because if you're not so demanding as a teacher in the beginning, it can help boost their ego, make them think that they are better, in the language than maybe what they are. And for some students, just give them confidence, right? And then they will be able to progress faster, because it's a proven thing that if the students think they are doing good in the language, they will improve in the language because they feel good about themselves. And in the beginning, that's a good thing. But there always comes a point when the child can no longer drink milk and you have to give it meat. Otherwise, the child will die, right? If you just continually feed a child milk, they cannot grow stronger. So you have to start being a tougher person, maybe even like a tougher parent, and become more strict and, allow for less mistakes and things like that. So maybe some of you felt that the grade on the paper is quite harsh, but I think for intermediate students, I grade it fairly. So if you're, there comes a point, that you have to understand that you have to take on some of the responsibility on your own. A teacher can only help a student so far, right? And if the student doesn't seek help and the student cannot, you cannot just rely on the teacher to give you everything. Because all I am is a guide. I just guide you in the right direction. But when it comes down to you having to be in the real world, you have to do everything on your own. But right now, I feel I'm just a guide for you. So if you're having problems or you need somebody to help you, then that's what I'm here for. But you can't get everything from me, And sometimes people say the main reason a person should be a teacher is all you do is get up in front of the class and act. You're like an actor. You just give the students the confidence to think that you're doing everything. But actually, if you think about it, the teacher doesn't do that much. It's the student. You're the one that does everything, right? The teacher does so much, but the student is the one that has to take most of the burden and do most of the stuff. The teacher can only help you so much. And let's see. basically what I'm trying to say is, if you're suffering in some area of your writing, I'm here to help you, but at the same time, you cannot just blame me. And also, let me tell you a small story. When I was a university student, my university required us to have 2 composition classes. One was called writing, and the other was called writing 2. Okay, but when you looked up in the course book that our school had, what writing 1 taught you was how to write an essay, and what writing 2 taught you was how to write research papers. Well, I took my writing 1 class, and I always got very, very good grades, always in the 90s. And even when I turned in my final portfolio, the teacher just opened my portfolio, and she started to, because the requirement for that class, the end, was just collect all of the papers, everything you've written throughout the semester, any summaries I've had you to do, anything you've done in class, put it all together and put your very best piece first. So everyone have quite a big portfolio to turn in. And I remember the teacher, her name was Patty Swartz. And she opened up my portfolio and she read the first page. And she said, "Wow, this is really good. You've worked so hard for me this semester. I know that the rest of it is just as good." And she wrote 100 on the top of the page and gave me back my portfolio. And I got an A in the class. So I went to writing 2, such a good writer. The teacher doesn't even need to read my portfolio. And I wrote the first essay for the class, and I got a 45. And I went, and the teacher had this rule. That class had required 3 essays, 1 research paper. And when I got the 45, I just went to the teacher and I just said, "But in my other class, my teacher always said that I did quite well, and how can I cannot get a 45? How can I get a 45 when my other teacher always gave me quite high score, nothing less than an 80?" And the teacher looked at me and said, "What's my name?" And I feel quite shocked, and I just told her name, and she said, "I'm not the other teacher, right? So I have different standards. I think you are a sophomore student, so you should be writing sophomore work." She said, "I allow all my students in my class to rewrite 1 essay. So you can choose 1, but since you've done so terribly on the first essay, you have no choice but to rewrite the first essay because you failed it." And so I went home and I rewrote the essay and I turned it back into the teacher. And I got a C. I got a 75. But at least I know at that point I need to really work hard. And I still keep in contact with that teacher today. So in a way, in the beginning, when you're learning a language or doing something, it's good to get motivated and for some teachers to encourage you. But there comes a point, when you need to understand that you need to improve. And I understood that at that point. But at the beginning, I felt very hurt and shocked. That's one thing I want to talk to you about. Another thing I want to explain to you is the relationship between teachers and students in the United States. In the U.S., when you are, it is very common for your professors to be your friends, to be quite close to you. When you're not in the classroom, maybe you will eat with your students or do some activities with your students or meet them anywhere. It's quite common. Just for example, when I taught in the U.S., I taught ESL, and there was many times I have many students, they will have a big party. And the main point of that party is just go there and get drunk and drink and meet a lot of people and eat food and anything. And I went there. I'm quite young, you know. Some of the students are older than me. I'm quite young. I want to have a fun time, so I go there. I got drunk with my students, but guess what? On Monday, they came to class, and in the classroom, I'm a different person. I put on a different hat, you know. And still, they took a quiz. I don't need to take a quiz because I wasn't a student. And they get a whatever grade they got, you know, if they got a C or got a D or failed because they're hungover, that's their problem, right? Because at that point, they're my student. And I think all teachers in the States are like this. And I used to tell the students, the first semester I taught here, I had 2 classes that I totally hated because they treated me terribly, you know, in the class. But I never gave anybody a bad grade because I didn't like them. And I never gave anybody a good grade because I liked them. You got whatever grade that you deserved. Even though I even failed some students, and I just say, I'm sorry I failed you. I like you, but I failed you. And just like last semester for the applied languages sophomores, I failed. They were sophomores last year, now they're juniors. I failed 12 students for my short story class. I am very, very close with some of those students. Like, we are very, very tight. But I failed many students. Because why? They didn't do the work. They didn't do what I asked them to do. So even though I like them as a person, they did a terrible job in the class. So I have no choice. They didn't do some things I wanted them to do. So I don't want anybody to think that I am biased in any way with the grading. Because I won't name any names, but there's a couple of students in this class that did pretty good on their essay, and I was quite shocked. I just said, wow, this student surprised me because I didn't think this student will work hard. So it's just, it can go both ways, you know. So I just want you guys to understand that. But because there's some teachers in the United States that practice this, a certain kind of policy in their writing class. And I think I'm going to start to do that too. From now on, when you turn in a writing to me, I don't want you to put your name on the writing. I want you to make up a name. Okay? Do you understand what I mean? I want you to make up some name that, I don't care what you write, don't tell anyone in the class what name you made up. Okay? And if you guys have decided on a topic for this next paper, I'm sorry to say, but it's better you don't come to see me. Because then if I know your topic, then I'm going to know whose paper it is when I grade it, right? If I know your topic. So I think to be more fair, that's one thing I can do. Ask you to write, just make up a name on your paper before you turn it in. And then after I grade it, then you can tell me who you were. And I'll be able to, you know, that way there's no way I can be biased, you know. I cannot, you know, no one will think I'm giving someone a higher or lower grade based on some personal opinion, you know, that I have of you, okay? Does everybody understand? So you have to make up a new name every time you turn each paper in, because then I will know your new name, right? And I don't care you make up an English name or Chinese name, because it doesn't matter. And don't put your ID number on your paper. And try not to write anything in your paper that will allow me to understand who you are. Okay? Because that's the best way, I think. And this class is quite small, so I think it's easy for me to do this style of grading. Is there something else I wanted to talk to you about? Maybe not. Maybe not. So, just try harder and keep up the good work. But yeah, I have no bias about anybody in the class, you know.
Sorry. Sorry.
There's nothing against you. Ferris, there's nothing you need to say because it's not only you, okay? So don't worry about that, okay? Because I just want to do this. I think it's a better way. It's not because of you or anything else, but I just start to think about some things, and I think it's better we do it this way. So go see Ellen in the Writing Center for help on your paper. And just keep up the good work, okay? And I also want to tell you, you can ask the applied juniors this semester. I know maybe you're not so familiar with them, but maybe you can ask them, what did you get in your composition class for the first paper that you wrote for Barry? Half the class failed. Half of them. Half of them failed, not the class, but failed the first paper. They got less than 60 on the first paper. So, you guys are much better, right, than them. So, and but only one person ended up failing the class because they wrote really strong portfolios. And keep in mind that 50% of your grade is your portfolio, right? So, even you did terrible on all the first 3 papers, it's still possible to get a C in the class. Even you failed all 3 of the other papers, right? It's still possible for you to get a C in the class. So don't worry about it, okay? It'll be fine. Today we'll go ahead and start our writing. We're going to do 2 different activities. One is I'm going to let you do an in-class revision, practicing revision, and you can either do this handwrittenly or you can do it, you can type it and turn it into me, but I still want you to follow the rule I told you before to make up a name. Don't put your ID number on it. And you can look at, that's on the top of page 70, and it's called Practice Revising. And what it says what you need to do is you need to revise and rewrite the following draft on a separate piece of paper. Add a main idea, one transition signal, and specific supporting details for one example, and add a conclusion. I want you to add 2 more examples to this. So this essay that you're going to do is just a homework assignment, and you need to have a total of 3 examples dealing with bad luck, and it's a revision exercise. I'm going to tell you the date that what I'm going to ask you to do is to print it out or handwrite it out and have someone in the department office put it in my mailbox. I'm going to tell you the date and the time that I'm going to check my mailbox, okay? And so that means you have to get it in my mailbox before that date. But you have quite a long period of time, okay, to do it. I need to look at a calendar before I can tell you. So I'm going to check my mailbox on the 14th of this month, okay, for this assignment at 8 o'clock. That's a Tuesday. So it's like you have maybe 1 week and a few days, to do it. So you have to turn it in by the 14th, and I'll check my mailbox at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's okay? So it's up to you. So all you need to do is add a main idea. You'll have to add probably 3 main ideas, 3 transitions, right? Because you want a total of 3 examples in this essay. Okay, this simple essay about bad luck. And remember, make up a name and don't put your ID number, and then just drop it in my mailbox. So that's one thing that I'm going to let you work on in class today. Another thing that I'm going to ask you to do is for next week's class, when we meet, not next week, but next week, when we meet on the 15th, right? You will have to have completed your second draft of the essay you have the first draft of today. So you'll have to have your second draft ready when we meet the next day of class, right? And you'll need to let someone, before you start on your second essay, you have to let someone peer review your paper. So you need to get out your little sheet sometime between now and the next time we have class, and mark someone's name off and ask somebody to review your hold on, I'll tell you who she is. She's an elementary school teacher, and I taught her before, and she just asked, can she come to listen to improve her listening? Yeah. And I said, sure, why not? And what was I going to say? Oh, you need to mark someone's name off your list and ask that person to peer edit your paper, and then take it back and complete your second draft. And have it ready when we come to class next week, okay? And these are the things you need to look for when you revise the person's paper. Unclear areas. Does the draft have any places that are unclear, that you cannot understand? Is the draft organized clearly according to the outline form on page 62? So if you remember on page 62, we had to have like 6 examples with transition signals and 6 different examples. So when you read their paper, you need to be reading for the 6 examples and make sure they're separated each in a different paragraph, and make sure each of them has a transition signal that's different, that links them all together. Does the draft have a complete main idea sentence and a clear conclusion? So remember how we talked about the conclusions in the last class, like on page 68? Does the conclusion do one of these 3 things? Does the conclusion give closure to the composition by restating the main idea, talk about a related idea that grows out of the composition, or does it look to the future, how these examples will change, or the future, or remain the same, get worse, whatever. So you need to make sure that the composition does each of these things. Just like I said too, each example is introduced with a transitional signal. Make sure there are 6 in the essay that you read. And last, are there sufficient specific supporting details for each example? Okay, so make sure that each example has enough supporting details that use specific things. Remember, we looked on page 66, it talks about using supporting details that are more specific, less general. And don't forget to sign your name on their draft. Does anybody have a question about what you need to look for in your classmate's paper when you peer review? Joyce, don't look so sad. Don't go to sleep. Jennifer, don't look so sad either. So does everybody know what you need to do for your peer review?
Can you write down what it is you have to do?
It's on page 70. I just went over this box. These are the things you need to look for.
Revising checklist.
Those are the things you need to look for. So you have to turn in on this day you're going to turn in the, what's it called, the revising the essay. And then on the 15th, our class time, We have a second draft. And and then you need to peer review using a checklist on page 70. Those are the things you need to look for. And this one you have to drop in my mailbox, right? So does everybody know the things that I want you to do? Huh? Okay. So now it's time for a 10-minute break, right? No, not yet. In 10 more minutes. So what I want you to do, in today's class is I want you to spend the time working on either of these two things in class, and I'm going to sit in the back, and I want you to come one at a time. If you want to come talk to me about your first essay that you turned in, and I'll go over every comment that I've made on your paper for you, because I tried my best to mark every single error that was in your paper, and I tried to write a review at the end, but sometimes when I start to grade the paper, my handwriting gets very terrible, so maybe you cannot understand what I wrote. So I want to use this class to go over your first essay while everybody else is working on these two assignments. So I'll just sit in the back waiting for you to come one at a time. Okay? We can have a break after 10 minutes, okay?